fill those rentals, have those rentals taking care of themselves, basically, not living off the profit, is probably the biggest advice I could give anybody who wants to buy rental properties. Welcome to the Real Estate Investors Money Matrix podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Or I should thank myself for having me.
Typically, this is Andrew The Program Willis.
Thank you.
From
I need Bruce Buffer.
Typically, he's behind the cameras and the audio equipment, making sure that me and Scott keep this show on the rails. But today,
it's off the rails.
It's off the rails. We are sans Scott. So I, Danny, am taking the host chair for this episode. So
while I'm still over here, maneuvering the audio levels,
he's
I'm
got
still
a double
doing
job.
both.
He's a triple threat, really. Today we'll flex two of those. Getting the voice going, getting the audio rolling. Can't do anything about his face. Sorry for those watching on YouTube. The face is the face.
But that runs in the company here.
Scott's nicknamed the pretty face. Doesn't always live up to the billing.
Oh.
So we are sans Scott today. It's Danny and Drew, and we're ready to jump in. So we've got a couple of hot takes, a couple of fun topics to cover on today's show.
Yeah, I'm getting into the rental property. Well, I will say, you call it my first investment deal. I lucked into a good deal recently.
He's now a guru.
And it kind of, I have an itch now that I need to that I need to keep scratching, whether I'm scratching it by just scrolling Zillow every day, just seeing what's out there.
You're hooked.
And in scrolling Zillow, I like the other day happened upon like a little townhome that I'm interested in. I'm like, oh wow, good location. It looks good inside. I'm gonna go check it out. So I'm really into rental properties, and I'm intrigued by, Scott talks about them. He said, get them, hold on to them forever.
They
and
only go up in value over time. Right?
And you have someone else that's paying for them.
100%. Or you should typically have somebody else that's paying for them. So I want to jump in real quick why you're so hot for townhouses. Coming off of that first deal, now Angie just wants to look at townhouses because you just sold your townhouse down in Tampa. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going to give away all the secrets because I'm still working on what the book is going to entail. But the book is going to be something called like how to flip a house during a pandemic. Now, this is only a strategy you can do once every 100 years during a pandemic.
During pandemic.
You have to make sure you won't know the pandemic's coming. So
you have no idea.
In 100 years, just buy a house every month or every year.
This is the every 100-year plan.
Yeah. And then hopefully you get lucky.
Yes.
And a pandemic hits and house values have to randomly go up.
Random, very random.
Yeah.
No science behind it. You just have to get lucky. They shoot
Is
up.
there? Because was there a reason why
honestly,
why did that happen?
They're really there's no real indicators of why the housing market swung up the way it did, especially going into that. I mean, we were going into 2020. Everybody was thinking gloom and doom. Lots of YouTube videos out there, lots of people of authority speaking about how there was going to be a parallel crash because how are people going to pay their bills? Government steps in, a topic that we've talked a lot about and that we will continue to talk about. They put in place moratoriums. They put in place forbearances. They try to help landlords out in the beginning. Now keeping that in balance has kind of just become a debacle. But I think that saved things initially. And through that, the confidence in the housing market just exploded. And now you just have a simple economic thing where it's supply and demand. They're just way out of whack. You've got so much demand to buy. Obviously, rates dropping really, really exploded that. When the rates go from, prime rate was 4.2 to maybe 3.8 if you're a 720 or better on your credit score.
Mine was like 4 something, when I bought.
Yeah, and I built 2 years ago. I locked in at 4.5, and we thought that was amazing. And then they come out with rates literally that were sub 2.
And did that happen because the economy crashed during the pandemic?
Exactly. The Fed was trying to help, right? They're trying to build the economy back up, so they want people spending money to put money back into the economy to get it to rev up a little bit.
But they knew housing demand was up, so why did they have to do that? Why did they have to entice people with a low interest rate?
Well, I think they were trying to put a buffer in between what they foreseen coming if there was a problem. So I think strategically it was a smart move to make mortgages more affordable. Now, the drawback to that is, can people really carry the mail on paying those bills that are due? Just kind of like pre-08, when the big short happens, you're writing mortgages to people who have no business getting those mortgages. People are a little scared that we're broaching that area again. But I think initially it was a good idea to keep it propped up, keep that market propped up so it didn't fall, get those rates lower, get buyers' confidence up, get them in the marketplace, get cash back into the economy. I guess what they didn't foresee is the balance shifting so far to the seller side to where the inventory is just so low, the demand is so high, it drives that market up, and that market's gone up and up and up and up and up. We're seeing it kind of cap off right now, which is fantastic. We're seeing, like, we're in Jacksonville right now, days on market are going up, not at a drastic clip, but as to where days on market used to be about 9 to 10 days, we're seeing it be 36, 40 days. Where houses stay on the market a little longer. As before, you could list it same day, sell it for over asking price.
I think mine was less than 9 or 10 days.
I mean, that's because you're a bona fide guru at this point.
Right. Yeah. The marketing that I did was just off the charts. That's what I did. I bought the townhome, and then
pre-pandemic,
and then about 6 months in, I see that everyone's talking about the house prices going up, and mine's going up like more than it should have in the amount of time that I had it. And I was like, well, shoot, if I sold it, I'd make I'd make a little bit of money. And I'm like, no, let me just hold on to it. If I move for some reason, I'll try my hand at being a landlord. So I did end up moving, and it went up even more and more. And then when I came here and started working with you guys, I learned that I don't need a realtor to sell my house. I can sell it myself and not have to worry about that commission. So that saved me a lot more, and that really it was very enticing to sell it and pocket. I feel a lot more safer with. Like, I feel like a more confident person. Yeah. I feel safer if there's ever an emergency. So I'm glad I did. And I want to get into rental properties more, and buy a few more maybe before I buy my personal house.
So there's no feeling like that big ass check. That big ass check.
Right.
You're like people who work regular W-2 jobs, or you just have a 9-to-5 deal. Not knocking that, because like we have that currently. I don't know if it's 9 to 5, but we work a regular job. But
I wouldn't call this regular.
This is not regular. You're right. And it's not a 9 to 5, and it's not regular. But
lunch every day ain't normal.
A lot of Thai food. Lots of Thai food. But when you get that chunk money, which is different than like getting a paycheck, it changes a lot. It changes your thirst to get more of that. It makes you feel secure, safe to have a nest egg put away. And real estate investors that's what they're going after. When you think about getting into the world of real estate, you think about a vehicle to make large paydays. And it doesn't always have to be this massive amount of work neither. I mean, we joke that you kind of lucked into your deal, and there's a good bit of luck with it.
Oh, so much.
A lot of luck with it. Yeah. But when you step back and analyze it, you applied the education that you got in just a short time of working here with us. Like, you're surrounded by real estate investors now. You learn a little bit along the way. You learned instantly how to save yourself at least 4% just in commission costs. Right. So off of that 4%, whatever your sale price is, you're already putting that right in your pocket just because you had a little bit of education. Then you get that big chunk of money, and your whole, like, everything just feels there's nothing like the security of having money.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're not worried about every little thing, every little bill. How am I filling my tank? What if I get a flat tire? Where's the money coming for that? How am I paying my bills? When you don't have to worry about that, and you can focus on, okay, what do I do to leverage that money to make me more money? Yeah. Then you have a whole new perspective on things. Yeah, you're hungry for it.
You said it on the last podcast. Money, what was it? Money, it may not
being broke is inconvenient.
Yeah, being broke is inconvenient.
Yeah, having money does not buy you happiness, but it allows you to do things that make you happy. It allows you to help other people too.
Yeah.
Right. So now you've got this thirst for it. Right. Now you're hungry for it. Every day, Andrew's coming.
I'm seeing a house today after work.
That's right. You're going to look at a townhouse, another one, because the first one worked out so well.
And I'm counting on another pandemic after this one. Fingers crossed.
Maybe the variant, another one, get your prices back up even further. But I think, just that first run, that big chunk, and then the thirst for that, now it's something that's on your mind all the time. As before, I mean, had you ever thought of that at all?
No, I didn't. I guess I thought I was going to live in that townhome for like 10 years. Sell it, use that money to buy my next house. I never thought about selling it. See, what I like about having this chunk of change, not only for like my own safety, but it's for when I buy another rental property if anything goes. Like I'm more confident in buying other rental properties because now I have like a just in case money
Right.
if something bad happens.
Right.
So that just it's a safety net in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I put no money down on that townhome, so
I know you had to like that. I mean, literally,
that's
every bit of
major
lucky
hack.
rolling in major
Yeah.
hack. So you got a first time buyer program, which there's
Yeah.
always first time buyer programs available. If you've not owned a home before, they're usually 100% financing where they take your down payment and they finance it and they roll it into your loan, or in your case, they run it as a second right next to your loan. Those programs exist in every market all the time. They're always different. They're always changing. I'll never know. I'll never be able to explain to you every first time home buyer program, but they are always available. So you get into a townhouse that you think is going to be basically your starter home.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a common, young people, families, they buy a starter home, they get into it, marriage, kids, outgrowing it, whatever the deal is. And then you're off to, or maybe you're just rolling with fatter pockets in the next 10 years of your life and you can afford a bigger, better next thing.
That's what I thought was
right.
Be the case.
Yeah, exactly. So then you kind of, hopefully people, what they think is, okay, I can maybe get 10 years of appreciation out of that house, pay down the mortgage, sell it, and then roll that right into my next home. While those are great investments and it's always nice to have a place to call home that's your own, you're not burning that money, making somebody else rich by paying rent. It's not a true investment that pays you back, as opposed to now the way you can look at real estate after you got in and out of a townhouse in, is it under 2 years?
Yes.
Just under 2 years. It provided you a great place to live for a short time. Then it provided a couple of tenants of yours a great place to live, provided you a little bit of monthly income, and you didn't have to make your mortgage payment that whole time. Then it provides you this big hit once you get out of it. You flip your way out of it because your equity position was so great. So it was a true investment. And for you, it was no money out of your pocket, this massive return on investment. And then now you can parlay that money that you made
into happiness.
Into happiness. That's right. Into more money, making your money make money, right? So it's just a mindset shift. And you definitely lucked into it.
I definitely
you got lucky.
you
got lucky.
The itch that I have right now probably wouldn't be as itchy if
the itchy itch.
If I didn't get lucky with that appreciation. Like I'd probably still have the property, have renters in it. It was like 3 hours away from where I live now, just out there, but I wouldn't have that safety net and that determination to go get another right
away. Yeah. Like, let's make this money, make more money.
Yeah, like after work today.
Yeah, after work today, going to look at a townhouse. Yeah. But so that gets you into, that was your foyer into rentals as a whole. Now you've got this thirst for it. You want to grab more. I like to talk about, and I'll have Scott bring this back up on episode when he's on, but we have this plan. We called it the teacher's plan for lack of a better phraseology. But if you can acquire a rental property every year for your next 10 years, right, on average $100,000 or more in net worth, you can have a net worth of over $1 million, right? So every time you buy a home, the goal is that you're on this payoff period to get toward this $1 million net worth number, right? So you got to buy them right. You got to buy them good. Hopefully you're buying them with equity right away, and you're adding to your net worth
what do you
every
mean
time.
Buying with equity right away?
So hopefully the deal would be that we can you can leverage a down payment that you're getting a good buy on the property. So maybe, and I know it's tough right now because the market is the market and everything is selling for list price or close to it. So it would seem, I can tell you that's not true. There are still deals out there to be had that are under list price. There are still houses that get listed that come down in price as opposed to just go up in price, contrary to what people think right now. But if you can buy a house, get a good deal on a house, you're buying that instant equity. So right now, if we're appreciating at a certain rate and you buy that, and even if it's, I don't care if it's 6 months later, if it's appreciated a little bit, you bought that equity, right? You bought in at a good spot and it appreciated as you went. So if you can still do that and then fill those rentals, have those rentals taking care of themselves, basically, not living off the profit, is probably the biggest advice I could give anybody who wants to buy rental properties. And that was something that Scott sat me down and talked to me about when I told him about my own plan to buy rental properties. He said, as long as you can, 2 rules. If it's a good buy, like you would buy it whether there was a renter in place or not, If you really like that home and it's a good buy for you, if it feels right, it's a good buy, right? If the numbers make sense and you would buy it regardless, not thinking about, oh, I know my friend will rent this from me if I buy it, like not using leverage toward buying the deal, but you would just buy it on its merits alone.
So that's how you identify a good deal?
That's how we as a company and myself, and that's what I've been trained to do to identify good deals. Don't think about the needs of others in your life. So like we have obviously a lot of people that we help in the real estate game. We've got a whole host of affiliates and students that we work with. And one of the biggest things that I see when people make mistakes is that they worry about, okay, I got a buyer that wants this and X, Y, and Z situation. And then they try to force they force a deal to fit those needs as opposed to looking at the house on its own merits, right?
Yes.
Making sure that regardless if that person wasn't in your life, would that be a good deal to buy based on the numbers, based on can you make it profitable for you no matter what, right? So that's what we use to identify a good deal. Obviously, we love to get a discount up front no matter what, right? We're negotiators. It's what we do by trade. We're trying to get a discount. But if it's a strong market value, a solid home, and you can get it, as long as you're not paying above ask price, right? Typically, as long as you feel good about that purchase, it's going to be a good deal for you because if you've got the right knowledge, education, time makes real estate make money no matter what, right? If you know how to rent a property today with Airbnb properties, there's a lot of things that you can do to make that investment pay you off in a big way. Same thing what you just went through, right? You put 2 renters in your house, a renter in your house, it covered your mortgage, got you 2 years principal pay down, then you cash out of the deal and make nice money. Now it happened fast for you because of a pandemic, but if that would have operated on your 10-year schedule like you initially thought, it still would have been a great investment for you. Even if you weren't living in it all 10 of those years, but you had rented it.
I would have still made a lot of money because
Exactly.
they'd be paying down the mortgage.
Exactly. And you'd have that principal pay down, and you're not making that payment every month. Somebody else is.
Yeah.
When you cash out, you get all that equity cashed out when you sell it also, right? So that's how we look at a good deal as a whole. But if you can acquire a property, one property, and it's not rocket science to do it. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can do what you did and go buy it through having a mortgage. You can take it under terms, right? Like a lot of people don't realize you can buy houses without having any cash or credit.
And which one of those terms would that?
So there's a ton of things you can leverage. You can leverage a subject too. So if you find a property that's distressed, meaning the owner is in a financial pickle, they're behind on their payments and they're willing to allow you to step in and take over their property to get their payments caught up. That's a great way to acquire properties. We call that the real estate unicorn, right? A lot of people don't know about subject to or how subject to works. We love subject tos here. Lease options. It's a great way to acquire a property. You can take a property on a lease option and sell it on a lease purchase. Options, another way to take a property. That's how I sold my neighbor's house. I had an option to buy my neighbor's house. I sold my option to an end user or a buyer, right? And I just made my profit in between. There's a lot of ways that you can acquire a property without actually having the money and go into the bank. But in the same breath, you can just walk right in, apply for a mortgage. If you get qualified, now you have that property. Once you can have that property become an income property where it pays you, you can acquire more. Right? Your debt to income ratio will support it. Basically, they'll look at that house like a business. It pays you. So a bank will allow you to stack mortgages on top of one another, right? As long as you can support it debt to income ratio wise and it's set up properly, you can acquire these properties over time. And the key there is, so just think about buying 10 houses in 10 years and you have them on 30-year or even 15-year mortgages. By the way, I always think you should have a 30-year mortgage and pay it at a 15-year rate, because if you have a 15-year mortgage, something goes wrong in your life, like you won't have that safety net. You're locked to that payment.
Yeah, I don't even know why that would even exist.
Yeah, it's just a payment that's a lot higher than a 30-year. And if something happens to you, you've got to, like, that's the payment you got to make. You can't modify it. But if you pay at 15-year rate with a 30-year mortgage and something happens in your life, you can have that relief, right? That helps you out. But if you can acquire those 10 properties and pay them off in 15 or 30 years, just use yourself as an example. You'll be getting toward the spot in life where you don't want to work anymore, right? You'll be heading toward I don't want to make Andrew sound old, but you'll be heading toward like the days of cashing out. Like, I don't want to go grind it out at a job anymore. And every year,
Well, once I became an investor, I got a lot more gray hair. I don't know if you noticed.
I mean, I don't know if that's just from being an investor or working around people like me and Tora. And
very
else.
stressful.
Yeah, it's a very, very stressed out office place now. But as you cash those houses out, one year after year after year, you've got options. You can either collect that mailbox money and never have to, you have no mortgage
Just
anymore.
It's
just taxes and insurance. That's it.
It's like $10,000 a month.
Exactly. Maybe more.
Maybe a lot more.
I'm sure by then rent's gone up and houses have appreciated. So you're just getting, before you ever get out of bed, right? If you've got 10 houses and they're all renting, you should be collecting $10,000 to $30,000 a month and not even having to get up and do anything. And that's a beautiful thing. Or if you really want to stack your nest egg up before you go into retirement, you sell off those houses one after another, right? And then by then, it's, you're
stress free. Don't have any rental properties.
You have nothing to worry about anymore, right? So you don't got to worry about, do I pay a property manager? Do I manage it myself? Worry about fixing the houses up when the renters get out. If you just want to cash out because you put in the work and you've earned it every year for the next 10 years after that, you're set. You should have a house that's around probably by then $200,000 some odd dollars, and you're just getting that big check year after year after year for the next 10 years. So it's a long-term kind of investment plan. It can make you money along the way. You can't live on that money. But when it's ready to cash it out, now you've got these drips of large hits, right? And you can play with it. You can keep half of them, sell half of them, whatever your needs are at that moment. But that sets you up to go into your quote-unquote golden years very well.
It's a long-term plan. But even in the short term, I mean, if you have even 5, maybe you're making like an extra $1,000 a month.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, oh yeah. And you can get creative now, like I said, with Airbnb. Now you got to be careful. I mean, again, we talk about this a lot. You can't believe everything that you see in a YouTube video, right? There's people who are trying to sell things to you, but Airbnb can be very promising in the right market, right? So like we're in Jacksonville, Florida. We're by the beach. It's a great place to have them. St. Augustine, a great place to have them. Anywhere there's travel fair and people at transient places where people are coming, Airbnbs have been huge windfalls for people who had problem rentals, didn't know what to do with them. Airbnb comes along. You put a couple of bucks into some nice furniture and decor. A lot of people hire.
Welcome to your home away from home.
That's right.
Stuff like that. Life is good.
Exactly.
Pictures.
All the cheesy stuff that you see at Home Goods, right? Just fill the place with it.
Home is where the beach is.
All that fun stuff. And, there's a lot of case studies where those are out earning just straight month-to-month rentals or annual rentals.
I mean, shoot, every time I try to go on vacation, I look at all those prices. I can imagine.
It's insane, some of the money they get for those places. And we actually had an investor here who he built 2 new houses right next to each other, one in Memphis. So good travel market. A lot of people go in and out of Memphis. And one of them was a annual rental, so yearly lease. The other one was Airbnb. He was 3 timesing his income with the Airbnb compared to the rental house, right? So now he said it was easily $20,000 more to build the Airbnb because all of the finishings and all the furniture and everything to make it enticing. So you do have to do it right. And he was paying a property management company to handle both. The property management fee on the Airbnb was a little more.
Yeah.
But even with all those costs, he was still 3 times what he was collecting the rent on the other house. So you can get creative depending on where you are. There's always ways, short-term rentals to make those work for you. And like you said, if you got 5 of those stacked up, it's a pretty good chance that you're going to be putting a healthy portion of that right into the HIP National Bank for sure. So rentals you can look at them a lot of ways. Short-term income, long-term plan is the way we like to look at them, building that long-term wealth. And there's a lot of ways to acquire them as well. But the rental game is interesting. I'm trying to acquire my first beach condo at the end of this year, hopefully when that market chills back a little bit.
Yeah.
End of Q4, we're looking at the market probably correcting itself. I don't know that there's going to be a crash. I don't know that anybody can really know what's going to happen, but we do see it correcting itself probably toward the end of Q4. If it does, me and my wife are looking to pull the trigger on our first condo over there and convert it into an Airbnb. So we'll have more on that we'll see how the income stacks up.
Well, if there's another unit in the building, Let's do it together.
That's right. That's right. Andrew's a junkie now.
Like-
He's over here itching. He's ready to get more deals. So tell us a little bit about the townhouse that you're going to look at today.
So it's a corner lot, which is
Those
really
are
cool.
the best.
Yeah. See, it's 180 listed as 180,000.
Mm-hmm.
The way it looks, and it's been remodeled inside. It looks like it has brand new carpet. Before they remodeled, it looked like they had hardwood, which I'm actually a fan of. I don't like carpet just because it holds dirt and allergies.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's got brand new carpet in the bedrooms, brand new countertops in the kitchen and the bathrooms, stainless steel in the kitchen, but it is a galley
kitchen.
Galley kitchen.
Yep.
So, but you know how you said you're wondering if you can tear that wall out, and open
Yep.
up the kitchen.
Yep.
So the wall that's there doesn't go to the roof. So that wouldn't be a support beam, right?
No. Not
So
at
you
all.
could
Yeah,
take it
it's
out,
just a false wall.
create like an island there.
Exactly.
So
Give
there's
that open feel.
So there's like so when you look at a house like that and you think, where can I improve this to increase the value?
Yeah, so I look at the things why people buy houses. So in townhomes, curb view is a little less important because most of them you're in a neighborhood where most houses look alike. However,
But
in your case, you got the corner lot. So that's a huge plus for your curb view.
And this is a unique place because all the houses kind of look different. There's like different,
that's cool.
They're connected, but there's different shapes, different colors.
That's always good.
I
So
like
they
that.
keep the aesthetic different. So
Yeah.
it's not like this bland row of the same.
Right,
house.
like the one that I left.
That's all curb view. That's all curb appeal, and that's all to the positive, right? So those are things in my head when I'm looking at a deal. I'm like, okay, that's good. And you're going to buy that. You're not going to have to invest into making it better from the
Right.
curb, right? Already probably looks pretty good from the curb. You got the corner lot, which is the most desirable in townhomes. Townhomes, where I'm from, they call them row homes. Basically, got a bunch of houses stacked together.
Well, in Philly, they do
In
look
Philly,
more
it's
like
the row homes, right?
rows.
In blocks and streets,
Yeah.
right? So down here, they call them townhomes because they're kind of set back in neighborhoods off of the main streets. But you have neighbors that adjoin your home, right? So the sounds, whatever, living in between people. When you have that end unit, you've got one less person to worry about for one, and you've got kind of the full surrounded yard, right? You can go alongside your house. You got the backyard. You got the front entry. Does this place have a backyard?
Yeah, it has like a side yard. I don't know if it has a backyard, but the porch is also in the side yard, and it's a screened-in porch. Another
That's good
positive.
because you got the long, you got the bigger space on the side of the house. The other problem with townhomes is the backyards are only as wide as the home, so they're usually pretty small.
Yeah,
so when you're that end unit, you've got that whole wraparound piece of real estate to have. That makes it more desirable, and you're buying that. So that's a good thing. The next thing that I look at is, where you spend most of your time. So you spend most of your time in the kitchens, most of the time in the bedroom. I probably spend more time in the kitchen than I should, and definitely more time in the kitchen than I should. But
if I had a wine cellar, I'd spend a lot of time in there.
the Florida wine cellar, I don't know if that's a thing.
Doesn't exist.
No basements here.
Yeah.
3 inches and you found water. But so you've got you got to look at those things, and when you're looking at what can increase value, a galley kitchen is obviously not the best of situations, but if it's easily changed, it's okay. I think I would just probably not look at doing it right away.
Right.
I would see what the demand is. Right now, rentals in Jacksonville are insane. We've got high rent rolls as a whole, and people need places to live, and we've got a lot of people moving here. We got a lot of people coming from New York, Chicago, and they're not all able to buy a house because of the supply and the demand. So a lot of people are renting homes waiting to buy, right? So they'll grab a rental and they're scouring just like you, looking for a good house to buy. They'll pick up your rental, for a year, maybe 6 months or whatever the deal is. And they might not care about the galley kitchen, right? It's not forever for them. So it may not be a pressing issue that you need to change right away. It might work out to where you don't.
It seems like maybe just a resale kind of thing.
Exactly. So that'd be another thing. When you're ready to flip out of it to help resale, probably make that upgrade. Or if you see a value in it, maybe the vacancy rate's a little higher than you'd like, maybe it makes sense to make the investment into it and open the kitchen up at that point to keep it rented more.
So does that happen here in Florida? Do we see like vacancy rates high?
Not.
Because I feel like there's always demand for a good rental.
Yeah, it's not high. Jacksonville is one of those crazy rental markets where it's such a transient place. There's so many people coming in and out all the time that the rentals, I'll just give you an example. They built a brand new apartment complex 2 blocks from where I live. Before it was even finished being built, it was at max capacity.
Jeez.
Right. And they're not done building it yet, and they're not taking new applications for rentals because it's full. Like, everything's spoken for. So right now, especially, like I said, you got people coming in from these large metropolitan areas that they're like, hey, Jacksonville's a great spot. We got a little more elbow room. We can go ahead and, we get a little more elbow room here. Things are cheaper. The cost of living is much less. The taxes here are less. I mean, especially if you're talking about moving from New York. Yeah. So it's very attractive. I've never really seen or conversed with the investors that we know around here who have trouble filling their rentals. The couple that we have are always full. You might hold it empty for a month out of the year while you're getting the other tenant out, getting it freshed up and kind of putting somebody new in it. But yeah, not a high vacancy rate. And I would assume that it'd be no different over in that area where you're looking at. It's a good area.
Yeah. What about you did an option with your last deal. So how did that go down?
Yes. So that was fun. So we have a whole kind of fresh take on doing wholesaling. It's wholesaling retail properties. We call it wholetailing because we're super creative.
Sorry, I was so engaged in your story. Yeah. I didn't have time to roast you.
Wholetailing, right?
Real creative.
Yeah, I was open for a roast there.
Sorry, I was like, oh, okay, keep going.
See, I had you captured.
You did.
So wholetailing is basically you take a retail property and you strike a price, and you have an option at that price.
Strike a price.
So if you're selling at 200, I come to you. I say, Andrew, I hear you on the 200, but in the best case, if a great buyer comes your way, what's the least you could take and still walk away happy? And then I shut up, and then you come back with a number.
Probably like 185, 190.
Perfect, right? So, and most people,
I probably shouldn't have said 185, 190.
Because it's 185.
Yeah, no.
To you, it's the highest number. You said to me, it's the lowest number.
Lowest.
So what we do is I look at the price honestly. I make sure that, it's going to appraise. I make sure we're not pricing problems. And I lock an option in at that price, right? So you said 190. It's out there at 200. So we lock an option in at 190.
Lock an option in at 190.
Yep. So that means I have an option to buy your house for $190,000. Okay. I have typically my agreements say I have 90 days to exercise that option, right? Another hack is we allow you to cancel that option whenever, as long as we don't come to an actual agreement, right? So if in this case I was working with my neighbor, so it was very, very friendly, but I told him if I don't perform and I can't sell that option, no harm, no foul. You can cancel whenever, walk away scot-free. I walk away scot-free, no harm, no foul. Right. So I had an option to buy it at 190. Now I'm going to sell my option to a buyer. Right. Okay. And that's the legalese of it all. Right?
So that allows you to do it without actually having to be a real estate agent.
That allows me to take basically equitable ownership in a home. Right. So I can sell my interest. Okay. So I don't need a license. I'm for sale by owner at that point. I'm a partner in the deal with my neighbor in this case, right? So through contracts, I acquire the property. I didn't have to lay out any money. I didn't have to buy it. Because I have agreements and I know how they work, I was able to leverage them to gain ownership in the property and then resell that ownership, right? So all I did was, and the backstory on it is, we built 2.5 years ago in Southside Jacksonville, a KB home. Love it. Beautiful neighborhood. My neighbor built probably 6 months before us.
With all due respect to the people that actually put sweat and blood into the building his home, he actually built the home.
Yeah.
The people that actually swung the hammer,
these hands.
He actually did it.
Okay, so thank you to the CGI team. I want to say thank you to Crew Builders. I want to say thank you to KB Homes. No, I'm just kidding. They did a great job, and it's amazing how quick they build those places. Now I know now we've got a lumber shortage.
Yeah.
Right?
But back then it was like up like that.
So they gave us I locked our rate in whenever it was. I guess it was July. Locked our rate in July. We were supposed to move in, I guess it would have been January, because they were giving us 6 months. And they were done building that thing in 3.5 months, and it was ready to move in. And it blew my mind how they flew that thing together. It was amazing. And it was, I mean, it's a well-built home. There's not that they didn't make a ton of mistakes. It was fantastic. But so that 4-month period, I mean, we were moved in and we were happy as could be. But in that same time frame, my neighbor, who's military, we've got a lot of military here in Jacksonville, he got relocated to Hawaii. Terrible for him, right? Hawaii, what a horrible place to have to go. So he went to paradise and he never came back, basically. He's like, I'm not moving back. I love it here. His kids are there, and it was his final he's in the service, but it was his final relocation. He was retiring, and he's in Hawaii now, staying. So he was renting the house while he was there for about a year and a half, and he was ready to make an exit. So exactly what you were doing, he was doing. His house was worth X. He rented it. We had this boon come in with the pandemic where the house market went crazy. Our homes appreciated like crazy. I mean, I built my home for $248,000 till we were done with all the upgrades. It was $280,000. And right now they're making offers on it at $364,000.
That's a good little jump.
Which is crazy. I mean, if we sold today, I'm putting $100,000 in my pocket. Like, it's wild. It's definitely crazy.
That's a nice safety net.
That's a big, nice.
That's double the size of my safety net. That'll catch both of you.
That'll catch, exactly,
and the dogs
for sure. So this whole, he's looking at the landscape, and his property manager at the time was trying to get a listing from him to sell it, right? And I had talked to him a couple of times. Said, look, if you ever need any help, this is what I do for a living. Just come over. We'll talk about it. No pressure, anything like that. But his property manager was trying to get a 4% commission to list the home, and then you got to pay another 3% to a buyer's agent. So he didn't have that much equity. We didn't build that long ago, so he didn't have the room. And actually, he refinanced.
He didn't have as much as
not as much as me, no, because he did 100% financing. I had a $30,000 down payment. Okay. He didn't have a down payment at all. He had a VA. So he had his VA loan where you don't have to put a down payment at all. But he refinanced like when the rates came down a little bit. So he had no no equity, basically. What we call 95% over leveraged. So if he's to pay, if you owe 95% of the loan and you got to pay 4% to list it when you sell, there's a lot more than 1% coming down the pike in fees. So you're bringing a check to closing, basically. And who wants to do that? Like, that's not good for anybody. So I talked to him about it, and I said, look, you're going to have almost 2% closing costs in our county. You're going to have 3% to a buyer's agent. You're going to have 4% to this guy. That leaves you paying a bill at closing. And that's not why we built the homes. We didn't do it for that reason. So he was like, well, what can we do? And I said, well, if you get rid of the property manager, I can do the entire transaction for 4%, paying a buyer's agent and paying myself. And he was like, that sounds amazing. So I just subtracted 4% from his list price. That was my option price. So I carved myself a $6,000 profit, and I left enough room to pay the buyer's agent who did all the heavy lifting. All I did was put the house on Zillow. A buyer's agent came. Buyer's agent writes the offer. Buyer's agent handles the closing paperwork. I just got a check mailed to me after the closing. And I put a sign in the ground and put the house on Zillow, and that was it. Right?
And you controlled all of this through paperwork, contracts?
Just paperwork.
You sent it to him to e-sign or whatever?
Yep.
And
so we did the whole thing, e-signature, the whole flow. He was well aware of everything that was going on. I saved him at the closing table. It turned out to be me saving him about $34,000 in savings just in the commissions that he wouldn't have had to pay. And I negotiated.
So you could have taken more money.
I could have taken more money. I could have came back to him with it. Actually, I'm not even going to lie. I kind of thought about bringing an offer back to him to make even more money. But I thought, he's my neighbor. It's good. It's good.
But you'll never see him
again. It's good karma.
Yeah, it is.
It's good karma. I don't want that bad karma. Plus, I didn't do. It's just because I knew some things, and I put the house on Zillow. Yeah. The buyer's agent, I let them do most heavy lifting. But now we've got great new neighbors. I got a great paycheck. He's super happy. He saved a ton of money. He actually made money where, I guess the way it worked out, total swing, he walked from the closing with about $19,000 in his pocket, as opposed to where he would have had to come to the closing with a lot of money, like I guess he would have had to pay like over $25,000 to get
What?
out of that deal.
That's almost a $50,000 swing.
Exactly. And it's just because we got rid of a lot of those, the fat, as I call it, a lot of those fees. I was able to negotiate his closing costs to the best possible place. The buyer did not. A lot of times when you buy a house, you ask for closing costs from the seller. A lot of times it's 3%. So, I mean, remember, 4% to list it, 3% buyer's agent, 3% concession, and 2% closing costs. I mean, he'd been poor.
Yeah.
He'd have been broke. He'd have been bankrupt selling his house. So with a little bit of knowledge, some contracts, and a quick game plan, that was a 14-day process to get it sold. And 30 days later, everybody was cashed out. New neighbors are moved in. He's living on the beach in Hawaii, loving life. And I got a nice check in the middle. And we were, everybody's happy. That win-win-win that we preach and we were always looking for, we had in that deal. Those deals exist in every market right now. They're for sale by owners who don't know how the real estate game works, but they know they don't want to pay agents. They don't want to pay these crazy listing fees because, not to take shots at agents, but it ain't hard.
Yeah.
I mean, you order the photos, you put it on Zillow. It's no different than putting it on the MLS today. Everybody sees it. All the agents see it.
Yeah, I don't know what the advantage of the MLS is anymore with Zillow. Like every property, like you're going to be seen, your property's going to be found if you put it on Zillow.
Especially at the retail level, right? When you start talking about real estate owned by banks and pre-foreclosures and things like that, the MLS has probably some advantages because agents have pocket listings that don't go public. And then they have like investors that they cater to, right? So that makes sense. So you should still have agent relationships that make sense. But when you're talking about retail properties, Zillow is that's where everything is. So people all the realtors are connected through Zillow the same way that they were in the MLS. So when something new comes on Zillow, it emails your buyer, it emails your agent, it emails, anybody who has a map drawn to those filters. So there's really no advantage in today's world besides a seller agent's network and being able to sell it to the network.
Yeah.
There's really no other advantages. So it's those for sale by owners who are out there that I don't want to pay an agent because I don't see the value. If you're an investor and you can think about how do I leverage this retail model, you can go in, speak to those homeowners, get those houses under options and sell those options. It's a great little strategy. I've leveraged it a couple of times. Our affiliates and our team here, we're leveraging those deals all over the country. I mean, 30% of the deals we're doing right now are those wholetailing deals.
Right.
And they're fantastic.
Is it easy to determine if a market is going to grow in the market that you buy a rental or an investment property and grow in the next 5 to 10 years? Does it always grow because it's houses? I know you kind of touched on it earlier, but
yeah, it's an interesting proposition, right? So we caution people all the time when we're giving advice or we're training or we're talking to our students, affiliates, investors, anybody that we're giving advice to. We tell people that there is no crystal ball. You can't just foresee what's coming in the future. You can only look at historical data and understand market trends. Everything appreciates. Like gas costs more than it used to. Housing is more expensive than everything gets more expensive, right? So if you can invest in something today, one of Scott's favorites is the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is right now, right? So if you can invest in something today, chances are time is going to be your friend. It's going to be worth more later, no matter what.
Should the current market scare people away from buying right now?
I think that there's a strong argument for that. I think it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. If you feel like it's a good buy and you would make it on its own merits right now today, I don't know that you can afford to just sit on your hands on the sidelines and wait for what might happen. I think that everybody can predict what they think is going to happen. Nobody knows. What if it doesn't correct? I mean, what if the market does keep undulating higher and higher, or it plateaus but it doesn't drop? We are where we are right now with the facts that we're looking at today. So if you want to be an active investor, you've got to be able to make deals happen in any market.
Yeah.
Right? You got to be able to be flexible and make it work. I think when you're looking at will a market appreciate, I look at a place like Jacksonville, and I think it's just ripe to
Oh my
expand and
gosh.
explode.
Yes.
I mean, Jacksonville is perched and ready to explode.
It's like, they always talk about, what are the biggest cities in Florida? Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, Tampa. But Jacksonville is the one where it just hasn't reached its full potential. The other ones have pretty much expanded to their
max.
Yeah, the
They're
max.
busting at the seams.
Yeah, Jacksonville, the biggest city in the country.
Yep, by landmass. Yep.
And this just hasn't tapped its potential. Downtown hasn't tapped its potential.
No.
With the amount of people that live here yet. For some reason, it just hasn't grown as quickly as the other ones. But there are a lot of things that can, I think, influence that and speed things up like that. And I was saying a sports podcast, but
it's a big part of it.
But
think about what sports teams mean to a city. Think about those franchises mean to a city. Look at the largest cities out there, or cities that have emerged of recent. I mean, so I was coming to Jacksonville before there was a football team here as a little kid. My grandfather was one of the top agents in Jacksonville, and he lived here for a really long time. We would come down here, and this place was like, it was Calford still. It was swampland. Like, there was not a lot going on here. They get that football team, and it changed everything. Like, it's still massive expansion based off the fact of when the football team came here. Things look so much differently now than they did then, and it's only looking different year after year after year in the positive direction.
Yeah, and when they have a good season, the city looks different. Like the enthusiasm. Sure. And I am kind of investing in, if it doesn't work out with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence, it is never going to work out. So I think now is a perfect time to invest in Jacksonville. This ain't like I'm not trying to get everyone to move here, but I mean, it seems like the perfect it's the perfect storm. You got a city that hasn't met its full potential, a lot of land to be had,
a lot of land, a lot of opportunities to be bought here,
a lot of people, a lot of room for people to move in, but traffic is bad sometimes. So it
can be. It's not bad in comparison. Like if you're listening to this and you're out in LA, you're in Atlanta, or you're in somewhere where there's like even Tampa sometimes.
Bad is relative.
Bad is super relative.
Yeah.
Jacksonville's traffic is not that bad. What is interesting though is, so that's part of a recipe, right? For what you need to be looking at when you're trying to prejudge growth. If you're going to make an investment somewhere, right? I touched on it earlier. We have a guy who built brand new houses in Memphis. He lived in Charleston. And my question to him was, why wouldn't you have built in Charleston? Charleston's a great place. And he said, our research showed that Memphis was poised to really explode in the next 15 years to where Charleston is close to probably as good as it's going to get. They don't have the ability to grow outward, where like you look at a place like Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And I call it a rubber band town. So like you've got downtown, which is in the heart of the 295 loop. So cities that have outer ways, loops. You've got the downtown, which is the heart where people go to work. And then that rubber band snaps back out and they all go back out to where they live because there's no downtown living, right? But that rubber band's only really as wide as the 295 loop. There's so much more to Jacksonville out past that is now in the process of being developed, right? And that's only going to bring more people, more rental opportunities, more investment opportunities, and people on top of people. We're not even close to maxing out here.
It might never.
What are we? Jacksonville's just over 1 million people population.
Yeah.
Is the biggest landmass city in the country. It makes,
the whole city is the county, or the whole county is the whole city.
It's wild. So when you're talking about where do I invest, I think things like that make tons of sense. Like, if you want to be successful, look at what other successful people do. An NFL franchise is not going to invest in a loser of a city, right? They're not going to invest in something that they don't see growth in. So, I think that plays into it. Look at when the Panthers came to Charlotte, look what that did for that whole Carolina area. I mean, Charlotte's a different place after that, and they've got NASCAR invested there too. Like, those are large companies dumping a ton of money into a city, and it exploded. I mean, Charlotte from the early 90s till now is just it doesn't even resemble the same landscape, and that's all that investment money that pours into there. So those are great places to get invested. I guess the approach would be, how do you catch up and comers, right? How do you forecast out when a market is going to explode and not get, invested into the wrong market? I think you should be safe with an investment like that, right? you should go to some place where it's already pretty well established that there's a good return on investment in real estate there. Would I tell you to, Batesville, Arkansas is a great place to invest homes? Maybe it is, but it doesn't jump off the map as a great place for me, right? What's there? I don't know. Never been there, never heard, never seen anything coming out of there, right? But, would I invest in Greater Philadelphia? Yes. Would I invest in any real outside of any major metropolitan area? Probably, because everything kind of grows and expands. Are there metropolitan areas that I wouldn't invest in? Especially right now, like I wouldn't want to be buying houses in LA or building houses near Chicago or New York City where there are these mass exoduses. But look at the trends. Where are those people going? Austin, Texas, Salt Lake City, Jacksonville, Florida, Tampa, Florida. Those are the places that identify good markets. And that's how you can kind of forecast out that growth. Again, there's no crystal ball, but when you look at other large companies and corporations that have millions and millions of dollars investing them in somewhere, it's probably a good indicator that you should also follow suit if you're in that market.
Yeah.
For sure. Interesting stuff. So Andrew is a bona fide real estate investor, one deal under his belt, looking at the second deal. Many more to come. Many more to come.
I got one last question for you. Since you brought up my potential deals.
Yeah, there's no S on that.
Potential
it's just
deals.
one deal.
Oh, I can't wait to say deals.
Yeah. Don't get over exaggerated here. But this is no lies on air right now.
Wheeling and dealing, jet flying, limousine riding.
The nature boy.
Yeah,
Ric Flair.
How dangerous is it for me? Actually, let's be safe. Someone like me, because I wouldn't ever do this. Never. Someone wants to put a low down payment.
Somebody named Drew, not Andrew.
Someone wants to buy a rental property, but they don't want to put 20% down because that's a lot to put down.
Yes.
Like
your standard conventional loan.
That's 20%. That's a lot to put down on a home that if you want to do this like once a year, that's going to really eat into your...
It's going to deplete your funds pretty quickly.
So like if this person wanted to say do a FHA loan, is that it? Or
FHA loan is your typically your lowest down payment requirement unless you're a VA and you have the ability to use your VA certificate.
So you want to put a low down payment, but those typically say you have to live in the property for like a year. What if I don't want to live in the property and I just want to rent it out? How much trouble can you get in? How risky is it? Do we even include this in the video?
Yeah, maybe we cut this part out, but no, I don't think it's risky. I mean, okay, so I'll just give you my own personal experience of what I've done in the past. I had my first home that I bought, I was 22. I was 21. And I bought a old converted, it used to be an ice house, kind of cool. Back in the day before refrigerators, they had these big stone buildings there. They keep the blocks of ice. And I bought this and it was converted into a house and it was fantastic. I got an FHA loan, 3% down at the time. You could have like a 590 credit score and get, with only 3% down, you could get, like it kind of blew my mind. I don't think we're far off that right now, which is kind of crazy.
What, not
your credit
requiring
score,
high credit scores?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure right now you can qualify for an FHA at and it might even be lower than this right now, but at like 595 credit score, which is kind of wild. A little scary too.
Yeah, that's weird.
But at the time it was 3% down. And when I was signing my paperwork at the title company, they highlighted a clause to me. It was like a kind of a homestead. He explained it as a homestead clause, right? That says you have to live in the property for up to 3 years. And this is pretty standard language in all of the federal backed mortgages, right? So your VA, your FHA jumbo, they're all they have that language in them. I lived there for all of 8 months before I was renting it out, right? So I guess the moral of the story is there's no task force out there that like drives by the house and makes sure that you're still doing it. There's a couple of things to worry about. So, and this is not me giving you guidance or advice of what, full disclaimer, I'm not telling you what you should be doing. But nobody's checking out. Like they're not driving by your house checking if it's you that's living there, you're renting it, or whatever the situation is.
But what if you go to buy?
your next property. Like you still have this,
and
you're gonna buy your next
and
property.
you want to use that same 5%.
You're not. You're most likely not going to be able to stack up federally backed mortgages, right? So you're most likely not going to be able to stack up an FHA and an FHA and you only get to use your VA certificate once.
And I'm not
until you sell it, right? So, there's a lot of hacks around that. A lot of different ways people do that. Get that first house, get it paid down, pull a home equity line of credit out and use that to buy the down payment for your next. So there's a couple of things that people do, and there's a ton of videos on velocity banking is a lot of what people call that, debt weapons, hacking. Actually, VIP Financial, one of the channels who we partner with, has a ton of information on that if you guys want to check that out. But to be frank about it, there's no task force out there that's like kind of rolling around saying, do you live there? Don't you live there? Another thing that people get really, really worked up about in real estate investing is what's called a due on sale clause. And that's where people who execute no cash, no credit strategies get a little worried, because a due on sale clause is in every federally backed mortgage. And it says that the note is due upon sale of the property. So the bank can literally call the balance due if there was a quote unquote sale of the property, right? Again, I've been doing this for 7 years. Scott's been doing this for like a really long time because he's getting kind of old now. He's been in it 25 years almost. Other people in our world have been doing it for 50 years, right? Because they're really old. But they've never heard that call. They've never actually seen that in application.
How does that come into rental properties?
So that doesn't, but it comes into how you acquire the rental property. So when we talked about getting rental properties without laying out the cash or going to a bank getting financed. So if you want to take a property subject to, that's literally a sale.
Okay. Gotcha.
So now if you're paying that mortgage payment where it was somebody else,
they could,
right? The bank could call that loan due. Now we've got protection measures that don't allow that to happen. So we get written consent by the bank that we can make that payment once they accept that payment. Now they're in agreement, right? But that's just another thing that people worry about. So it's kind of the same premise of, if I buy a property, must I live there for 3 years before I convert it into an income property? My neighbor's another good explanation on that. He used his VA to buy that house. He didn't even live there for 9 months, and he was renting it, and it was no problem, right? So could it potentially be a problem? I don't know how it would ever actually end up being a problem.
Because you can't, things in people's life change too. Like, what if
all the time?
What if you just want to move? You needed to move somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what they want you to do by that clause is sell it.
Sell it,
right?
Yeah.
Which, no need. Like, you don't have to sell it. You can just as easily convert it into an investment property.
All right, one of the cameras just died, so maybe we should wrap up.
Let's wrap.
Because I don't even know if those are still on. We'll see. Hopefully,
this might be the audio version.
Of the
podcast.
Yeah.
No, but Andrew, it was great having you on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Scott's return next week.
Yeah, so put you back behind the camera, so you don't got to be playing switchboard, microphone, camera, and guest all at the same time. Good luck on finding that next rental property, and yeah, we're looking forward to the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, hold on. We can't let you off the hook without dropping the podcast.
Do you want to?
Yeah,
Do we want to mix that vulgarity in real estate?
I want people to have a lesser opinion of you.
Okay.
So where do they go find you?
For a lesser opinion of me, youtube.com/DunandDrew. That's the visual part of my podcast. Yes. The audio would be just search Dun and Drew on any of your apps. Any of them.
Yes.
Will be there.
Lots of debauchery, lots of...
A lot of actually a really good interview last or 2 nights ago. Really good interview with a 20-year mascot.
The Jags mascot. That kind of blew my mind. That's a neat angle.
Yeah, people love this interview.
I like it.
It's really good. So go check that out.
Yeah, go check these guys out. They're a ton of fun. It's a good laugh. I get to laugh at him all day at work, and then I get to laugh at him when I listen to his podcast too.
You laugh with me.
All right, laugh with him. He's right. All right, guys. We'll check you out on the next episode. Take care.